Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our exclusive Global Leading Voices webinar campaign. We are delighted to have you join us here today. Please be informed that if you have any questions during the presentation, you may type them into the question box in your control panel. The presenter will answer your questions at the end of the presentation accordingly. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to our presenter, who will begin shortly.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to PECV's webinar, Digital Transformation 101 and How It Will Affect Your Business. My name is Tony English. I'm in a new role, different from the one you see on the slide today. I'm actually a VP of IT Risk at Butterfield Bank out of Bermuda and Caymans. And I have a number of years experience in IT and security as well. Started out in law enforcement. I worked in the energy sector, nuclear power plants. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in lottery and gaming. I've been a consultant and a few other roles as well. So today I'm pretty excited because we have a couple of other smarty pants here on the call with us to talk through this topic with us. We have Scott Perry and Derek Stevenson. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. I think it's going to be very helpful and interesting information. So I'm going to let Scott and Derek each introduce themselves now. So Scott, if you could tell us about yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. My name's Scott Perry, and I'm from Smoky, Seattle at this moment in the United States. I am a cybersecurity auditor. My experience is around mostly around public key infrastructure and internet trust anchors. I audit them for the protection of the browsers and as well as for identity credentials that exist on the internet. I'm also the co-chair of the governance working group of a new organization that I hope you will all become interested in, and that's sponsored by the Linux Foundation called the Trust Over IP Foundation. And it's great to be here. So Derek?
Hi, my name is Derek Stevenson. I'm a Director of Information Security over at Catalent. I've been within IT and security for 23 plus years now, which has ranged from healthcare through to lottery to a SaaS organization, and had the ability and privilege to oversee a multitude of areas within information security.
Thank you, Derek and Scott. And Scott, I hope you're staying healthy out there in that smoky air. Well, everyone, our topic today, we're going to first start off with a definition of digital transformation and what it means. Now, I don't claim to have the only definition of this, and Scott will certainly talk you through an alternative view on digital transformation as well that really is groundbreaking, and certainly as you'll see, it'll show you a future way forward for digital transformation that may not have been considered before now. I've also got some examples of transformative technologies, which is what digital transformation is based on. And I'll talk through some of those. Derek will talk through some, and so will Scott. We'll talk about benefits of digital transformation as an engine in business, and we'll talk about the risks around it and the impacts of digital transformation. So according to the handy-dandy Wikipedia, the definition of digital transformation is, as you see here on the screen, evolution of new, fast, frequently evolving or changing digital technology to solve problems that may or may not be digital in nature to begin with, by the way. It's about transforming processes that were either non-digital or manual into digital processes. And in some cases now, as you'll see when we get to Scott's section as well as Derek's, there's also the opportunity for digital transformation to drive evolution of digital transformation or of transformation of technology. It's really about the three elements you see in this picture: people, tools, processes, all combining together to help drive and feed and be evolved by digital transformation. So as a change engine, digital transformation can affect an individual, an organization, a process, or even larger constructs such as the internet. It can affect how you do your jobs, how you conduct your daily life, or even how you use technology generally. We've seen examples of this many, many times over the decades. And now that transformation of technology has taken on a faster pace and a faster change, as you can see from Apple's recent presentation yesterday, technology now can affect down to the individual, and that individual can be modified or changed in the way they do their daily life or the way they interact with other people. So digital transformation has a very large-scale transformative effect on society and people, and on how we do our daily jobs and conduct our business, of course. So as a concept, digital transformation isn't new. It has a nifty name now. Back in the day, we didn't think of it as digital transformation. We thought of it as new tech, new technology. Mainframe computers, as you can see in this timeline, go all the way back to the war years, World War II, when they were used for processing things like signal interception, to try to do translation, to try to do decoding of messages. They were used for calculating trajectories of projectiles and so on. So computers as an entity, as an engine, as part of that digital transformation methodology, they go back quite a ways. Personal computers were the next big step in that particular genre of digital transformation. And then the internet, of course, came along as well. Now, widespread use of the internet obviously didn't happen in the 1970s. It wasn't until later in the 80s, in the 90s, that we started to see anybody outside of academics or departments of defense starting to use, or governments starting to use the internet for anything beyond just talking between individual computer systems. But this is just an example of digital transformation and how it moves. Over time, these lines you see on this timeline, these events actually compress and they happen faster. And there's that old adage, that old example, I guess, of digital transformation back in the 80s. It was always said that if everything evolves at the rate it was evolving at the time for computer technology, for example, a silicon chip, when it came out, it was getting smaller and smaller. If that pace continued in the same rate in the auto industry, then you would see automobiles the size of a pinhead, but with the power of a diesel truck. Because the change is so fast and so transformative in that timeline, that change, the results of the change are quite impactful. So we'll talk more about that as we go through this presentation. Some challenges with digital transformation, and we'll talk about these in detail again later on, and we'll have a bit of a roundtable as well. Hopefully we'll have time for that. But digital transformation does present some challenges. It's a rapid pace of change typically with digital transformation. We see this all the time. For example, at Apple's main technology announcement show yesterday, they announced a new version of the Apple Watch, which now can read your oxygen levels. It can do ECGs to trace any kind of palpitations or changes in your heart rhythm. And it can do a bunch of other things as well. Well, that new watch replaces a watch that's less than 3 years old in technology terms. So it's not a brand new version of something that didn't exist. It's an evolution of that technology. Well, those previous versions of the watch would now be less popular, of course, with the new watch coming out. But that rapid pace of change may be something that's difficult for people to either afford or to keep up with. But it can also cause too many changes at one time in an organization, like a business. You don't want to have too much change constantly, because then you can't keep up with it and adapt to it. Rapid adoption of digitally transforming technologies as well is a bit of a challenge, in that you don't always want to be getting the latest and greatest thing. Even that new watch may have glitches in it that haven't been found yet. So being the first person to own it isn't always the best thing. That's what in the IT field we always refer to as being on the bleeding edge. You didn't want to be on the bleeding edge, you want to be in the leading edge. So let someone else do the beta testing, and then you get the next version that's been improved. There may be also problems with insufficient due diligence on new technologies, especially if they're coming at you fast and furious, or they're making major changes to your organization. maybe integration issues with existing technologies in your business. There may be a problem of porting old issues to new technology. For example, if you're moving your business or your applications to the cloud, if you take your current infrastructure model and just rebuild it in the cloud, you may be losing out, or you will be losing out on a lot of the advanced features in the cloud that offer things like additional security, better reliability, redundancies, all those extra things you'd want from a cloud service you probably aren't going to be able to capitalize on. So all of that could lead to some poor results from digital transformation and from transformative technologies. So some examples of how digital transformation could provide value as opposed to just presenting challenges. I'm going to pass this over to Scott now. And Scott, you can just let me know when you want me to change slides.
All right, let's start the conversation regarding one of the topics for digital transformation that we're going to, get more detail on, and that first one is blockchain. So if we can move the slide. So I have been involved in blockchain technology for the last 5 years, as kind of extension of the public key infrastructure, because it uses public and private keys in its processing. And so, I got understanding about how it's being used in society and how it can be transformative. And one of the alliances that I have is I've been working with the Linux Foundation and its usages and offerings in the blockchain area called Hyperledger. And at the Hyperledger conference in March, before the COVID pandemic hit, Don Tapscott, who's pretty well known for transformative technology discussions, he has been aligned with an organization called the Blockchain Research Institute and presented this slide, which really created more understanding about how transformative blockchain can be from where we are from the advancement of an information age, because that's where we were in 1995 when the internet kind of got more adopted and used, where information became more digital and it, from paper, as well as became more available to all people at any place on the planet. And that's where we, kind of exist today, but the advent of blockchain can move forward. And I'll talk about why that, the properties of blockchain can allow information to become more of a commodity of value. And, more of it has kind of been promoted, with cryptocurrencies, but there are that digital ones and zeros can represent value in a lot more ways than currency. And that is an area that's being explored by many blockchain researchers and developers in industry. And so if we start looking at it, we can commoditize information as a valued asset, then we can transform how we use information in our daily digital lives. So next slide. So, for all of you that have not had some orientation around blockchain, what is blockchain aside from, all the hype that you hear? Blockchain simply is a database. It's an available, records are stored, however, cryptographically linked, which allows them to be what we're going to talk about, immutable, that you cannot change the records on a blockchain, because you'll know if records are changed, and that creates more integrity into that database. In addition, redundancy and availability is enhanced because complete copies, redundant copies of the database are replicated amongst stewards or nodes, which are points in a collaborative network that have an entire database and coordinate themselves on how records can be introduced through what is called a consensus protocol. So they all work together on who gets to write a new record, depending on that consensus protocol. And in the Bitcoin network, there's value associated with who gets to write a new record. But that's not the case in all blockchains. They all have different consensus protocol that allows for the database to be updated when it's needed. One additional excellent aspect of blockchain is buried inside a database, you can have executable code. And if that executable code is immutable, it cannot be changed, you have a greater confidence in the execution of this executable code, and it's coined as smart contracts. So you can have more automated controls built in that you have confidence will act and operate consistently over time. And now, in addition to being promoting digital currency, it also can interrelate with digital currency, so the value of information can be exchanged with digital currency, which allows for what we're, as part of this topic, a digital transformation. Next slide. So what are the digital trust aspects? Where most of us that are on the call today, they're compliance professionals dealing with security and such. What makes blockchain networks a game changer for digital transformation? Well, again, records are immutable. They cannot be changed. You know if they're changeable. So they're, in essence, when a record is created, a transaction or such, it cannot be changed. And someone cannot dispute the origination of those records. That has an embedded non-repudiation attribute associated with it. In addition, a unique feature of blockchain information is something called zero knowledge proofs, which can be applied to the data, which will be a privacy enhancing feature, allowing for information to be exchanged without knowing all of the data, so that an attribute of data, such as date of birth, that needs to be protected, can be conveyed to an individual that just wants to know your age for, let's say, getting a drink at a bar. And so I can convey a proof that I am old enough to get that drink. I'm over 21, but I don't have to, provide the information about my date of birth. And so zero knowledge proof advances a lot of different novel applications of information as it is related to the cryptographic abilities of blockchain information. So again, also with the redundancy of the database throughout a number of nodes in the network, it creates redundancy. So if one individual copy of a database becomes corrupt or such, others can fill in the gaps to allowing great availability and information and integrity of that information, since there are a number of copies in a variety of different places around a network. Next slide. So blockchain has been, touted as the answer to all things. It's not, but it is a game changer for key aspects that don't exist today in our digital life. And so, as we have been seeing the advancement of proofs of concepts on blockchain technology, we're seeing a key trend as it relates to the list that I'm sharing on this screen. And it takes on a number of different attributes. One, provenance, the right to physical and digital assets. So organizations such as, dealing with high value physical assets such as diamonds, and in disputed countries, assertions around where diamonds came from can be made even in a disputed network, because once you make the claim, and if that claim is verifiable, then it's anchored on a blockchain network, and people can have confidence of the claims made on records on a blockchain network. So it's key to have, people are understanding that right. So that deals with title of land and title to a lot of things, where you have confidence that the originator or the source of title records are who they say they are. And you're seeing a lot now happening in the supply chain network, where you have ground to table, ocean to table transactions, which can track the actual movement of supply chain physical goods over the process, so that if there's tainted lettuce in the United States, you can track more clearly to a more isolated segment of that population if it was tainted, as opposed to blowing out all romaine lettuce in the country, as we saw in the last year. So, we have seen a lot of activity around cryptocurrency, and even today there's activity on the news and such. But aside from the cryptocurrency, there's a lot of aspects for stored value that can be exchanged, that have meaning in our digital lives, such as mileage for airplanes once we ever go on airplanes again, or other types of stored value assets that can be exchanged, that can be really just transformative in our digital life. And so another aspect is, as in the United States, we're looking at the elections. There's a lot of challenges around using the mail system to convey voting records. If we have, if we put voting records on a blockchain, and we know that the records can be immutable, it can advance the integrity of voting records if it's implemented in the correct way. Again, also on patient records, privacy is needed for patient records to be exchanged with integrity. But there may be aspects to value the originator and sources of digital records, like doctors, and they can attest to certain activities they've done that appear on patient records. Finally, the activity that I am most involved in is the advancement of verifiable credentials, and I'm going to spend a little time about that, and talk about these types of, physical credentials, and how it can be transformative to move those physical credentials that we use in daily life to a digital format, to allow itself to be exchanged in a way that can advance technology and applications in a meaningful way. So if we can go to the next slide, I can explain a little bit more about digital credentials. In a nutshell, it's whatever you have in your wallet. They're physical credentials that you hold, that individuals hold and present at various aspects of their personal life. You have credit cards, you have driver's license that you show maybe at the airport, or you show an officer if they need to know. There's a number of different physical credentials. Now, there's a lot of things that organizations do to try to make those physical credentials to be, so authentic, so that they can't be counterfeited and such. But obviously, and you're seeing in the marketplace, I don't know about you, but I get a new credit card, almost every 3 months, because someone has taken control of the information, or there's some risk associated with its usage. And so, there's movement to try to get certain credentials to, as it moves to a digital container, because now we have smartphones which has advanced technology to create an integrity container that can hold verifiable credentials, that you have confidence that can have greater strength and more authenticity than physical credentials. Next slide. So I'll walk through a one transaction to demonstrate how digital credentials can be transformative in our daily life. So right now, a lot of the boarding passes that you use at the airports, they're digitized. But the credential that you use to authenticate who you are usually is still physical, like a driver's license or a passport and such. But if an issuer, like like the Department of Licensing for Washington State, issued me a digital driver's license with the same strength or even more than my physical credential, I can present that because it's going to be held in my digital wallet. I can present that to a TSA agent at the airport, and that airport agent can click, like he clicks today on verifying my my boarding pass. He can click on my digital driver's license to verify that the Washington State Department of Licensing actually issued that to me, and give that TSA agent adequate reason to move me past his gate, so to speak. And that agent doesn't have to contact the issuer, because that verifiable proof of that digital driver's license and the record that is attached to it, because my digital driver's license will be signed by the Washington State Department of Licensing, and that public key of the Washington State Department of Licensing will be on a verifiable data registry available throughout the internet. So I will have instantaneous proof that that is a legitimate license plate, and that will be transformative in a number of different use cases as these types of credentials are used. Next slide. So as we look at how the ecosystem or infrastructure can be used for digital credentials, it creates a need for more governance authorities over the credentials, and that issuers, such as the trust anchor to the left, have to follow published policies that they have in place in order to issue those credentials. And those policies will be available online, so that relying parties that want to accept digital driver's license as a form of identity will have confidence, at least, and understand the level of information or level of trust is asserted by the Department of Licensing in issuing that credential, whether they have looked at my other identity evidence to prove I am who I say I am, and will go against a policy or a trust framework that's in the middle based on the level of credential or level of trust that relying parties can assert. Now, some models, as it relates to more more high value type credentials, will invoke an auditor accreditor to ensure that issuers actually follow with the policies that they assert in policies. Okay, and so and those auditors can make it attestations that they have reviewed the policies of issuers, and actually can issue credentials and verify that they have done that, and those credentials can be stored or accessed through a credential registry. So more information can be available in a variety of different formats and functions, where individuals that need to verify that claims have been made on digital documents or digital credentials can be authenticated that these entities that made those claims are actually the entities that did so through verifiable proof in a blockchain related credential registry or access. So definitely a transformative technology. So next slide, and I'll pass it off to the next technology.
Perfect, Steve. Thanks very much. Very interesting stuff. Blockchain obviously is a transformative technology, is well known, and thinking beyond the use of it in cryptocurrency, it has a lot of applications for certain, and it will be a pervasive technology. So I want to go over to Derek now. and he's going to talk to you from the point of view of cloud services as a transformative technology and digital transformation. So Derek, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I wanted to touch base on cloud services and digital transformation and the kind of the security viewpoint that I see sitting in this realm. If you can move to the next one, please. So what I see and how we work, we see a lot of, excuse me, people looking at their initiatives. They're trying to centralize all their, customer contacts. That can be internal and external customers, things that they're providing. They're trying to accelerate their growth, trying to, get everything centralized, redundant, and then also leads to cost optimization. They're trying to figure out how do we get all this data into one area, all this metadata into one area to drive efficiency, reduce, footprint, costs and whatnot, and really just accelerate all that growth. So all this innovation, they're looking to create this new source of value. So they've got the one-stop shop, so to speak, where they've got all this data there readily available at their fingertips and able to start manipulating to what they need for their, reporting, their metrics, their sales. You can go to the next slide, please. So like I said before, looking for one platform for all their mission critical work and business applications and processes. They're trying to get this this visibility into work that they may not have had before. Traditional Excel spreadsheets, independent databases spread throughout an organization. They're just trying to get this new form of data into one area that they can access on the fly, have internal engineering teams, people that can start creating their own custom reports that they might not have been able to do before, with everything being segregated and deployed throughout international organization. And so this will all just drive better, business performance. People are going to be able to access the information on an easier level, easier format. They can, customize it to whatever they need versus having to have, multiple areas and trying to piece it all together. If you can go to the next slide, please. So what I see again from being in a SaaS organization, there's the business facing side, and then of course there's a customer facing side. So from an information security side, I feel it's sitting right in the middle of that crossroad, so to speak. I've got my business customers and then our sale customers that we're trying to help facilitate into the digital transformation space. So from the internal side, just like we're selling to customers, we're trying to digitize and automate all the legacy processes, keep everything current. We're trying to optimize the operations for the data-driven decisions, getting it again to one area, so all the information is centrally located and you can make better business decisions. And kind of speaking to what Scott had said, there's the digitizing supply chain management and tracking, which eventually the evolution, or maybe there's some out there now that are doing it, but blockchain can definitely improve upon that aspect of it. Then there's the knowledge and service, self-service side. It creates redundancy within your organization, the ability to have information in one spot. So as people come and go and whatnot, it's already centrally managed. You have everything there. You've got your best practices put in place so that if somebody comes and leaves, nothing gets wasted. You don't have to retrain and get people up to speed. It just cuts down on that time. And then there's the starting to move into the customer side, the products and services that you're putting into cloud solutions. We're using cloud solutions to solve, customer problems. Customers come and they want, like I said, for ourselves, they want to put information into one area. They want to stop having to, have a multitude of databases to go to, trying to get everything into that one area, and create a better digital experience for their staff. And then it goes into marketing and distribution. Again, this can be marketing to your internal audience or your external audience. It's getting everything into one area. I guess I've said that a lot, but that's kind of a key area, is getting that information and all that metadata into one focused area, getting it joined. And allows you to provide, better customer support throughout your channels. Next slide, please. So this is the area, I guess, that is near and dear to me from the risks that I see in being in information security. So again, I see this from two aspects. I see it from managing risks internally, and then of course the side of the customer side where we get reviewed from. So a big area is now that you've started to embrace digital transformation, you're trying to get to that one pane of glass, if you will. You're using these third-party cloud applications. So all of a sudden, you need to be aware of what region, what country is your data in. Do you have GDPR concerns, CCPA? Do you have PCI concerns? There's a whole host. It doesn't stop there for compliance, but you have to be very aware of where all this data is going within cloud. And now that you're getting it into cloud, well, how do you get it there? Is there an API connection? Is it a push versus a pull? Is it a, hopefully not an FTP, but at least an SFTP connection? Or are people just compiling information into a flat file and emailing it out? There's a whole lot of ways that we can get that in there. And then there's the third-party sub-processors. So there's a lot of magic and secret sauce behind the scenes of a SaaS organization. They're supplying a service, but they're also using other sub-processors to help provide you with that service. So customers and myself included for our own internal things, you have to be aware of what are all the third-party processors that you're using. How do you manage the risk of the risk? And then that moves into the control over the access. So just because you move to cloud, you don't want to necessarily give up everything. So how do you log into this application? How do you control that? Single sign-on has been, the big move over the last years. So a lot of organizations now have, multi-factor, two-factor, single sign-on solutions and how they will look to provision. And then shadow IT. It's not probably there's no organization out there that doesn't potentially have this issue. There's so many corporate cards out there or purchasing policies under a certain dollar amount that maybe don't get scrutinized a certain way. So it's very easy for department leads, department heads to dig out a credit card or business unit, PO and sign on for a cloud solution. So now all of a sudden, out of the purview of IT, they've got information that is now leaking into cloud that they can't control. So that leads into the ease of access. So the blessing and a curse. Can't go through one of these without talking about COVID. We're all being affected by that right now. Being a SaaS provider and also being a 100% cloud company, as soon as COVID hit and everybody's working remote, it was very easy for us. We had a lot of solutions. Well, all of our solutions were in place already to allow that secure access. But what about places that don't, that are trying to scramble to get into this? With digital transformation into cloud, all of a sudden you get instant access. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you have access to all that centralized metadata and reporting data that you're trying to get to. So then you need to look at all the risks and security controls around that ease of access and make sure that you're mitigating appropriately. Next slide, please, Tony. So what impacts have I seen within this? It has gone to enhance third-party risk programs for people in our roles. That's both, again, internal, just like I get assessed by our customers for third-party risk because they're doing their due diligence on us and our third-party processors. I need to do it for everything that we're using. I have to look at all the pieces of the pie that provide and make up our SaaS solution. Obligations to privacy and disclosure. Again, going back to the compliance, all this data is moving around. Organizations are adopting cloud solutions, so they need to be very aware of the regions that they're transferring data to, and in some cases, how they have to disclose that data. Most websites you go to now, you can go to the privacy agreement and you can go to third parties, sub-processors, and you'll see all the applications that are being used to make this happen. And then the application security and vulnerability due diligence. This has always been a big thing, but I think even now more so with the digital transformation world and embracing cloud. There's no shortage of solutions out there to help manage your attack risk surface. It goes beyond traditional brick and mortar. So everybody's looking for, reports, attestations to show that, code that's being, created on the fly is going in and has been tested and securely, which is always a challenge with agile. But it's just become such a big thing. Nobody wants to be on the news for an inadvertent data disclosure, of course. And then it goes to audit scope increase. As you add in new applications, even if they are cloud and you're, moving your risk to a different provider, it'll still increase your audit scope. As auditors come in, they'll ask for, how did you review that application that you signed on for? And, they'll want to review all those reports, and it just adds some potential additional time. And then I always go back to the importance of information security, IS training. I think it's probably harped on a lot, and I think so for a good reason. A lot of times, information security trainings, the yearly check the box, you get your report, you got to go do your thing. But it is, I think, critical to any organization. People, we're the weakest link, regardless of what career you're in. Even IS people fall victim to a good fish. It happens. So I believe that there needs to be a strong focus on IS training and ensuring that people are smart at home, and that'll just transfer to being smart at work when it comes to being able to spot risks and applications that they are potentially bringing onto their systems. And next slide, I think, Tony. And then this will hand back over to you.
Thanks very much, Derek. Interesting point of view on the transformative technologies that come out of cloud services. I'm a guy working in that sector. Very cool. I'm never the weakest link, just so everyone knows. I'm always the strongest one.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. So some other technologies that are part of the digital transformation suite of impactful technologies. One we're hearing more and more about is artificial intelligence. And a lot of products out there, a lot of vendors out there are claiming to offer artificial intelligence in their product line. If you've managed to dial into my PECV presentation I did in Brussels, where I sat on a panel that talked about artificial intelligence and information security, artificial intelligence in that presentation described the different types of AI out there, because there's no giant cyberdyne brain sitting out there about to take over the planet. It's not that kind of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence comes in a bunch of different flavors. It depends on what type of flavor you use with regards to what kind of result you're going to get out of AI. And there is guidance on this topic area from ISO, from the ISO standard set on artificial intelligence. And a lot of it's in draft form, but some has been written already. But this could offer a way forward, and it does offer a way forward for certain scenarios where you have like large amounts of data to process, or you have a need to respond to human users in real time without having a human sitting there to respond to them. Those chat bots that you run into all the time on websites now, those are really AI engines producing those things. Or you can make real-time decisions to stop things like threats in the new endpoint technologies out there available to protect your internal systems or your cloud-based systems. These endpoint protection systems include some algorithms and some calculations, as well as some deep learning networks that help to collect information on pattern recognition or behavioral recognitions that might indicate a threat is about to, or is in progress, or is about to launch on your network. Somebody's launching an attack, a piece of malware is going to launch, ransomware has been detected as an activity that's starting to just evolve. So with the use of something like an AI, you can make those responses much faster, and you don't have to have a person sitting there. There's usually a person involved in all these processes at some point to make final decisions or to provide oversight, because you don't want an AI making all the decisions, for example, to shut down endpoints that look suspicious when they may not be suspicious. IoT has also been a large area of discussion in technology, especially in the digital transformation sense. Internet of Things comes in a bunch of different flavors and is defined a few different ways. Again, there's guidance on this in the ISO standard set, but IoT can be anything from your household remotely controlled surveillance cameras to your heating systems at your home, or even in your commercial building. It could be the computer system in your car that allows you to connect remotely or to start it remotely from your iPhone or something. It could be the pacemaker in your chest that's helping to keep you healthy and alive. All of those things can be connected in some way in a digital format into a central network. And usually that's the advantage of them. You can manage them from a central network and control them and even modify them. With regards to digital transformation, IoT is already in play. And it's all the way out into industrial sectors even, where you have control systems on gas producing facilities that make gasoline, where you can control them remotely. You have them in the power grids, you have them in smart cities. These IoT technologies are embedded everywhere. So it's already happening, it's already transforming, and there's more transformation coming with IoT technology. Incidentally, I did do a short presentation on incorporating blockchain as a security mechanism for IoT. So maybe Steve can look at that later. IoT, some examples here, and Steve touched on some of this as well. And this also would relate to cloud technologies, and it goes back to AI as well as integration points for all these different technologies. But IoT can be used on even like farms for tracking farm to fork food movement and food evolution. It can be in smart TVs and SCADA devices, in industrial control systems. It could be part of a telecom network. It could be linked into a telecom network. It could be linked into big data or end user data and information. So there's different touch points for IoT where it can reach into different technologies and then impact other technologies in those areas as well, or feed off of them. So our next section, we're going to just talk about some points to consider. We'll have a little discussion on these as well. Some drivers, obviously, everybody wants new tech. It's a thing that's happened to human beings. When we hear about the latest Apple Watch, there's a drive from a lot of people to want that new Apple Watch. But these changes in technology can also, of course, as you've already heard, bring some other things you have to consider when you implement them, when you utilize them. New solutions can also be useful for solving current challenges or current issues. You can build new markets off of transformative technologies, markets that didn't exist, like cryptocurrency, for example, drove the digital currency market, and that grew like crazy for a while. Information sharing is also important as a driver for digital transformation, because you want more information shared in different ways. It's the way of the world these days, where information is quite valuable, but it's also expected to be quite accessible. And as Steve alluded to as well, there's ways to make that information that you share non-reputable, and also it can be verifiable as true information, which is a problem these days with fake news and all the other things that are going on with manipulation of digital information. Major events, for example, pandemics, that's driving the remote working right now, or a global pandemic. This can be a digital transformative event as well. So with obviously remote working, we've seen a lot of need for users to be at home or be in remote locations and still be able to do the same kind of work and to the same level they did before the event, before this pandemic. That's a major driver to force digital transformation to happen. You want to do more through digital means, and you want to change where your employees work from. So some controls. There's speed, technology change, and general change in processes and how you do your work as the core elements of digital transformation. So briefly, how could this all be managed? Well, we'll talk about that in a roundtable coming up here. We can actually talk to it now if you like. If Steve and Derek, you guys want to talk through some of these points now?
Sure.
Sure. I mean, I can do it. So, you know, one of the questions that's kind of come up in the next slide is, you know, how is digital transformation going to affect our daily lives? And, you know, in the combination of AI, cloud, IoT, blockchain, I believe, especially as we're more dependent now on digital life during, you know, the COVID experience, digital life is going to be more legitimate. Digital assets will become more reliable than forged physical credentials. And there's also going to be more focus around data governance, because as the value of information increases, we need to have proper governance controls over the usage of information and the distribution. Derek, any other thoughts?
No, I think you summed that up quite well. With, you know, people embracing work from home. I mean, our organization is home until at least you know, early next year. More and more people are just looking to embrace digital transformation, get the ease of access to their system still. So I think probably some organizations that weren't already in there are quickly trying to adopt getting in. So there's a whole sector that's probably seeing a sales increase in their tools to enable it and secure it.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have hit it on the head, and I'd agree with both those points of view. The only thing that I would add is that risk factor that comes with this, of course, especially in businesses like banking, for example, where people working from home still have to keep all that data and all that information extremely confidential and protected. So some end users, for example, may be working at their kitchen table at home or in an apartment at home, but there's not much room to protect that view of that screen that might contain confidential information for a client. So there's definitely impacts on the controls you have to put in place as well. And I've seen some clients during this pandemic who implemented pandemic-specific guidance for remote working, but they've changed that and they've called it now just remote working guidance, thinking that maybe this pandemic lockdown thing or work from home situation could be extended. And we are seeing some extensions of it globally with the change in the growth of the pandemic of the virus. So what does the future look like for digital transformation? Scott?
Well, if you think about, some of the aspects of digital life has been transformed because of COVID. There are organizations that never thought that they could even operate with people working from home and interacting digitally. And they realize now that because of this big test bed that we're exercising during the last 6 months, there's a legitimacy of doing more interaction digitally, which may change the way organizations house their employees. I don't know if I'd really want to be in commercial real estate at this point, as people are understanding that, there's going to be transformation about where people are and where people need to be in order to interact to do commerce in the future.
Great point. Derek?
Yeah, I see it from organization I've been in. There's always the fly time. People are commuting, flying to meetings, offices around the world, and businesses were always trying to get people to rein in that expense. And it was always no, need to be on site. And now with everything going on, they've really been able to prove that business doesn't stop. We can still work in this, new digital world. All these video conference solutions enabling, this transformation, validating it. So, yeah, airlines. I wonder how much business travel will decrease and continue to, decrease even after the pandemic is over. Will that industry be impacted as a result of this, and people embracing it?
Yeah, really good point. The whole travel idea or needing to be face-to-face with the customer, that's changed. And that's for good and bad for the company, for an organization that's paying for that, because it does reduce costs to not send someone on site. I also saw during the start of the pandemic, we all saw what happened with Zoom as a platform for doing this kind of remote working. It started out really getting beaten up badly for some challenges it had in security and how it was built. This digital transformation effect of working from home actually drove innovation on that product, however, at an accelerated rate. They brought in specialists in security. They really locked down their product. They evolved it very quickly. They moved as fast as they could, and now they're a bright shining star with regards to their value go on the stock market, and they've really bounced back from that challenge. So you can see the effects of digital transformation in real time when you look at a scenario like that as well. Just like you guys have quoted the other examples, a technology company itself had to evolve to meet the needs of the changed environments. So what's your top takeaway lesson for digital transformation, Scott?
Well, the internet was built without a security and identity layer. And because it was deemed to be too costly, or they didn't envision how the internet data was going to be used and promoted. And I think now is the time, because of our dependence on digital life, that the processes that are needed in place will start to move forward to create more legitimacy of transactions and more authentic identity and more real information as opposed to posturing.
Yeah, really good point. Derek?
Yeah, it's continually evolving. There's more companies that are embracing it, moving into it, whether they realize or they even want to or not. It's just a fact of life now. So the space is just going to continue to evolve, and along with that is how a company fills in the gaps and the risks, how they adapt to overcome those.
Yep, good point. And from my point of view, I'm a rules follower from long back. So I really like standards, and finding a way to apply your transformation and your transformative technologies in a structured and safe and planned way is, to me, really important. So I look for standards to help guide me. Where they don't exist, I try to build processes to help that evolution happen. Change management is very important in digital transformation. And for me as well, I also look to ISO standards, and the old diehard ones that give you structure, like 9001, 27,000 series or 38,000 series. Those can all help guide you when you're doing big, fast changes with technology, like happens with digital transformation. Ardian.
Very good points.
We'll turn this over to Ardian now. He's on the line.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tony, Scott, and Derek for delivering this remarkable and very informative webinar session. Before moving on with the Q&A session, I would like to inform you that PCB offers training and certification courses for ISO 27001 Introduction, Foundation, Lead Implementer, and Lead Auditor. Getting certified in these courses will show your dedication in implementing and managing privacy-related frameworks, some of them which are also linked with digital transformation, and most importantly, you will get recognized worldwide. Now, because of the time limitation, I think we will be able to answer one or two questions regarding today's session, even though I think that today's presenters covered everything related to digital transformation. So can we start off with a one-on-one question, which an attendee asks, can you actually audit the digital transformation of a company? Can you do that yet?
From my point of view, well, Scott's an auditor as well, but for me, it would be an audit against a kind of a related standard. If you're going to try to do that, you take something like an ISO standard related to IT management and look for changes in IT to be managed over time, because digital transformation is at its core technology. It does affect people and process as well, but it is technology at its core. That's my point of view. Scott.
Well, I second that. I mean, in order to audit anything, you need to have generally accepted standards. And, as digital transformation, it's really organizational change and technology change. And that is aspects that are currently audited on a daily basis, change management. And so it's important that we manage organizations' change process appropriately.
Yeah, from my standpoint, an organization that facilitates and enables digital transformation, we go about it by having compliance, to SOC to ISO 27001 certifications. So as you're looking at solutions that might enable you to be in the digital transformation space, centrally locating, you can look to see what kind of compliance and attestations they comply to.
Thank you. Now, before proceeding with the second question, I would like to announce that PCB will soon start distributing ebooks as well through our line of service of PCB Store. We will start with the ISO 22301 implementation guide, which will define and explain important steps in the implementation of a business continuity management system. For more information, you have the video link that I sent you in the chat box. So the second question is, working remotely in some sectors might be very challenging. Sectors such as manufacturing, production environment, for example. How do you see the digitalization in this sector post-COVID-19?
I answered first last time, so maybe Scott or Derek.
Well, part of it is the challenge that exists with COVID is to get closer to the manufacturing process. And so you have to be closer to these industrial machines that are generating the processes themselves. And so there's going to be more opportunity to create more global manufacturing organizations if the means of one step to another is to be the transfer of information as opposed to moving physical product. And so the transformation might happen as you may have more global type manufacturing organizations that deal with operations that are more digitally based.
Okay, thank you. Now, because of the time limitation, I think we have time to answer one more question. But before we go to that question, I have another announcement to make. I would like to inform you that PCB is now offering the online ISO 27001 Foundation and Lead Implementer e-learning training courses as well. Again, you can find more information on the link that I sent you on your chat box. Now, to conclude the presentation, I would like to have this question related to which industry do you guys think will be mostly affected by digital transformation?
Wow, that's a big question. For me, I'm thinking what I'm seeing anyway right now is definitely in the realm of endpoint protection on the security side and the technology side of things. Endpoint protection is evolving extremely fast, and it's being driven through the mechanisms of digital transformation.
Yeah, I think cloud providers I would expect anyway to see an increase. People trying to move away maybe more from their brick and mortar traditional in-house data centers and moving critical apps to high redundancy of cloud.
We've already seen the transformation in the banking sector, and I think that will continue. Half of the world's population is unbanked, and I think through digital transformation, we'll see more individuals participate in the global economy.
Great. So thank you all for answering that question. Once again, thank you, Tony, Scott, and Derek for this outstanding introductory session on digital transformation. I would also like to thank everyone who attended today's session. This session will be recorded and posted on our website as well as on our YouTube channel, along with the slides of the presentation. If you want to know more information about our webinars or PCB in general, please visit our website, www.pecb.com. Thank you all and stay safe.